a lot happened over the weekend, like we said, but one thing we didn't mention was the very interesting situation that is surrounding the owner of the collapsed building, the late owner. That's Femi Osibona, who died in the collapse. However, there's been stories about his friends and family, family fighting over property already. And this is a very sad situation because it's an African thing. It's a Nigerian thing. I've heard of other instances, people I know and relatives as well. No, not relatives, but people I know who are complaining about the same thing happening inside of the family, infighting because somebody dies and then they want to share property, not considering what the people who are bereaved are going through at this point of time. Is it the best option to first off, even before the body is cold, you're already going for property?
My main concern is the fact that, you know, I know that he very likely had a lot more properties and, of course, other assets that would eventually be considered. But the truth is, whoever takes on that mantle of patriarch for that family now is going to take on a lot of pressure. The pressure from all the families of the, the other people that were lost in the building. Of course, there's a lot of probing that's going to be happening to find out exactly what happened. So the patriarch of that family right now has a lot of questions to answer that in the end, he or she probably never had anything to do with in the first place. You know, there's a very strong possibility that they have no information about what was going on in the first place. So I would step back first and observe and figure things out before trying to, you know, grapple for property.
If you were the one in that scenario. True. You know, if things are, or if things were done right, that building should have had an insurance. So everything that has to do with the families or of those who passed on should be handled by the insurance company. You know, so maybe they are thinking about that one and look, and from what we heard from reports, that okay, so that there's quite a lot of physical cash even at home, and then there are choice cars parked there with the car keys. So it's all a case of early bird grabs the worm. Very unfortunate. You understand? So it's a case of the early bird grabs the worm. And you know, we mentioned about how this is custom, and this is it's nauseating. So if you think about it,
that's the right word
you
to
know,
use there,
when you first of all, have we considered his family? Does he? Now I'm not talking about Femi. Now I'm talking about in general. I'm talking about general. When these things happen, have you told about the kids, the wife? But then you have the custom, the well-being. Somebody comes and the brother comes in and says, "Look, it's custom that." You know, this was also an offshoot of that discussion where a brother comes in and says, look, everything my brother worked for is mine. The wife and the kids, you can't take care of themselves. What kind of, how despicable can you be?
You know, the funny thing is, the unfortunate thing is that this is backed by some cultures in Nigeria, which is very unfortunate. And this is so old school. It's something that I think should not be this day and age. In fact, there should be a law that says that this cannot happen. We're civilized people now. I'd like to
Do you understand?
So,
which is why when people talk about how, you're copying the West, when something is right, you should copy.
What's right is right. We don't like what we
You should copy. So if we're talking about upholding African traditions, then this should be headline everywhere. Mazino, somebody, when he gets to a ripe old age and passes on, his younger brother should just step up and say, hey, Ray, go sit down, you sit down. It's crazy. I'm just saying, like, no.
No, just no.
Just no.
So there's some, in quote, archaic traditions that we should have moved on from for a very long time. But even in biblical times, you know, there were some cases where a brother would inherit even the wife of a king or of a prince.
Of a regular man, actually.
Exactly, even in marriage, you know, so it's something that feels like we should have moved on from. But sadly, the only way we can prevent things like this from happening is if, for instance, the patriarchs, the husbands, put some things in place.
Write a will, guys. It's very important. Write a will.
Having a will and testament, and even in many cases, writing or making sure that your wife is the sole signatory to some things, and maybe properties are even just put in her name in the first place. You know, it's just that there's this trust matter now.
Before this even came up, incidentally, my friend, we were talking about this over the weekend. That look, a lot of banks, especially even outside the country and then also in the country, there's a lot of money that they have there that the only person who knows about the money is probably the man. And when he passes on, that's it.
Well, that's how some old generation banks are founded. There's monies that people can't get back. I have a cousin who's been fighting for years, I mean for decades, to try and get back her father's money. It's still in there, can't do it. It's very unfortunate.
And so my point is there should be some, like you said, there should be some sort of an execution notice or something, order that, look, if anything happens to me, you understand, I get my lawyer or I get somebody and all that, get it to my next of kin or something.
I just wanted to say, by the way, next of kin is not the same thing as a will.
Yeah.